there are some dummies out there that it's amazing what people do to each other. You know this because you're former police detective and that sort of business. And so you know that people get stuck on stupid, and that's most of the reasons they commit crimes. But there's a case a situation that just infuriated me. It has to do with two juveniles, age 14 and age 17, in Ohio, who tricked a 15-year-old autistic kid into thinking he was doing this ALS ice bucket challenge. Have you heard of that?
I have heard of it.
Yeah. But instead, this 14 and 17-year-old guys filled the bucket with urine and feces and cigarette butts and dumped it on him. Now, the mother found a video of this on his kid's cell phone, and he was standing in the driveway in his underwear when somebody from the roof dumped a bucket of this concoction on him. Now, let me tell you, that video has gone viral, and it has offended people everywhere. This Drew Carey put up $10,000 reward to anybody that would turn these guys in. And then Donnie Wahlberg and somebody else, Jenny McCarthy, they all put up $10,000 each, and they found these punks. Now, what the more infuriating thing about this is that these are juveniles. Now, what does that mean?
It means nothing is going to happen to them.
That's right. And furthermore, we're not going to know who they are because our foolish juvenile laws keep all of their identity secret. Now, you and I disagree over this a lot because you think that that's okay in some instances. I don't think it's okay in any instances, but
I don't think it's
but
okay.
your side has
I do
won.
not think it's okay in instances of violent crime. Absolutely.
Well, what about this?
Would you consider this an assault because of the urine and the feces, or is it what would this be categorized as in Fayette County?
Well,
would this be a felony violent crime?
Well, it's not a violent crime. I mean, you can be guilty of killing somebody in manslaughter second degree, and they say, well, that's not a violent crime. I think it is. I think it's an abuse of a vulnerable teenager, and there's a definition of vulnerable, and it's very offensive.
No, I agree this should be categorized as a violent crime. And I will say that, I mean, you've got a point because under my theory, the only crime that we would know about that juveniles commit would be just flat out murder. Attempted murder wouldn't count as a violent crime. Most assaults, so, you know.
What about burglaries? You know, we got a lot of these juveniles in our town are committing burglaries. A lot of them are stealing cars. A lot of them are breaking into cars. And they stay in juvenile court and they get sent home. Field released is what that is. That means the police catch them and then they release them to their parents on the scene.
More street cred that you have in the gang, so that actually puts you up in rank a little bit.
Yeah, and we don't know who those people are. See, so under your theory, we can let them continue to commit crimes incognito. You know, Officer Don, I never realized how liberal you are. You're a lot like Sue Wiley.
You are an awesome prosecutor, and you'd make a pretty good talk show host, radio talk show host, because oversimplification there.
No,
It's just a little more complicated than that. That's all I'm saying. You're becoming a radio agitator, Mr. Larson.
Well, I've been a radio agitator ever since you and I started this thing, but it doesn't seem to be working because we still got this wimpy, soft on crime catch and release operation in our state.
And it's actually gotten worse since we started this. Yeah, I mean,
Well, John Tilley is a representative from Hopkinsville, and he's one of the ringleaders. And you got former Senator Tom Jensen from London, who became a judge. And I've talked about this with you before. I'd really like to know whether he applies the soft on crime principles that he co-authored as a judge. You know, when people in a community know who a judge is, they know what they do, and if they know who the judge is and he turns out to be a weenie, then guess what? He's pretty much back in private practice.
yeah, and in smaller towns, it's harder for them to get by with that.
Yeah.
Because they're not as anonymous. But you take Fayette County, Jefferson County, your more populated area, judges are pretty much anonymous.
Nobody knows who they are.
They really don't know who they are, and the judges really do what they want as far as probation.
Well, if you go to our website,
like
we have our circuit court sentencing scorecard. Our website is lexingtonprosecutor.com, and we do our scorecard.
When's the last time a judge ran in this county on the principle of being hard on crime, a hanging judge? I don't think they even bring that up anymore, do they?
No.
That's like a negative. I think no one really does that.
Well, that's that.
Would you vote for a hanging judge?
Sure. Yeah. Here's the deal. If I were a judge, they do the crime, they're going to serve time. You see? And if I ever probated somebody, I would tell them one time, if you on your drug test, if you pee dirty, if you violate any of the conditions of probation, you are heading for the hooskow. That's an old man's term for jail. You probably don't even know what that means.
I can see it now. You get in line, and at the beginning of your court session, you say, "Okay, those of you who want to plead not guilty, those of you who want to be found guilty, get in this line, and those of you who want to plead guilty, get in this line."
Well, you're harsh.
Have two lines.
You're sort of indicating that I wouldn't be fair.
I know you.
And I would be, but I would. Anyway.
Exaggeration for the point of humor. Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah.
Is that what you liberals do?
See, there you go.
You really are. That's what happens, I guess, when you get into showbiz. You used to be a.
What's the Hollywood type?
Yeah. You're
You got to go along with winning Rome. I'm a disc jockey now.
Yeah, showbiz. Welfare for weed. Have you heard about this?
I have heard about that.
Yeah. Out in Colorado, guess what? People are using their food stamp cards. They call them EBT cards. They're using their food stamp cards to buy marijuana. Now,
is it legal, or are they somehow?
Oh, I think it has to do with medical marijuana. But it's still buying marijuana. They can't buy alcohol.
Yeah.
They say.
Well, you think about it. If they have decided that marijuana has a medicinal value, if it can be prescribed, then why wouldn't the government pay for it? Why wouldn't the insurance?
See, I'm telling you, you're right.
No,
Liberal
I'm
line.
saying
There
that's
you go.
Funny. It's absolutely. It's just another thing from these another offshoot of the marijuana laws that people just didn't really give a lot of thought to. Because now
Unintended consequences.
Yes.
Well, we talked a little bit last week about issues that law enforcement faces that people really not tuned into. And it's this militarization of police. What does that mean?
It's a label that certain people decided it's a great marketing label, by the way, if you're anti-police, militarization of police. It basically means that you don't want the police to have the protective gear they need when they're having rocks and bottles thrown at them and Molotov
or
cocktails
guns shot at
or
them.
shot. You know, this so-called military gear that police are getting basically is body armor, armored vehicles so that they can go in and rescue people in hostage situations. You know, when they have no other choice. They're not getting bazookas and grenades. And these grenades that you see the police lobbing are non-lethal stun grenades.
You know, we did a case years ago on what the guy we called the UK Ninja Warrior.
I remember him.
This guy took over the physical plant building. And he was in there all dressed up as a ninja. He had T2 swords and that kind of stuff. And the police went in, and they were behind these shields and that sort of thing. And one of the officers threw in a stun grenade. And a stun grenade is something that's a flash bang and bang, and it's a flash. And the idea is to stun them momentarily so the police can then rush in. And one went in. That would be militarization, you see. And it landed right between the guy's legs, and it went off. And he looked up, didn't faze him. He looked up and he said, "Now what'd you do that for?" You know, and all of a sudden they said, "We got a problem."
I mean, that less than lethal stuff is designed to look scary. It's designed to create the feeling of shock and awe to keep you from having to deploy deadly force. That in that particular situation, I think that guy was armed. He had machetes or knives or something. And listen, you had a choice. The officer could walk in and say, you know, drop the weapon, and when the guy didn't drop it, wind up shooting the guy. Or you could, you know, set up a perimeter, try to talk to the guy, try to stun him, do everything you can, put on your protective gear, and hope that you can get by with this person who's obviously got a mental issue and not have to kill the guy. I mean, that's that's what's amazing about your the emergency response team.
Guns, all of that stuff. And here the police officers go in there with a 9mm sidearm that have 7 bullets in it, right? And they started saying, we at least have to have enough firepower that we can compete with these people. And that's how it started. Now you got these yo-yos around that have got the same kind of weapons.
You can't win for losing. If the departments are not prepared for the worst, then after the disaster happens, they hold hearings and go, "Why were you not ready?" If you're ready for the worst, and they go, "Why do you got to look so mean?" It's ridiculous. It's the stupidest thing I've ever heard in my life. I wish I could put it more succinctly, but we'll see you next week on In Touch. I'm sorry.